"Lucas, run!" Maya screamed, shoving the billionaire so hard he fell into the rose aisle just as a gloved hand slashed through the space where his throat had been. The music kept playing, and his three brothers stepped out of the shadows wearing smiles that didn't match their eyes, and one of them whispered, "Don't make this harder." The moment freezes, wind, waves, and wedding music collapsing into a dull, distant hum. All Lucas can hear is the pounding of his own pulse as Maya leans closer, shielding him with her body like she's done this before. Like danger is familiar to her. Like protecting him is her job, even though it's not. Around them, the DC skyline glows behind the rows of white chairs, the Washington Monument standing tall in the distance. Guests shift, whispering, unsure if this is a rehearsal bit or a disaster unfolding in real time. Maya's hand tightens on his lapel. Her voice is so soft only he can hear it. "You are in danger. Pretend I'm your boss." He braces, but the words hit harder than he expects. Nothing about this day was supposed to feel like danger. And yet the dread climbing his spine feels ancient, familiar, like a memory he never learned to name. Someone in the crowd gasps. A man stands, pointing. Vanessa stares in disbelief, clutching her dress. Lucas feels the world tilt, but Maya moves with purpose, subtly stepping between him and the three men standing near the back, his brothers. She doesn't look at them. She doesn't have to. Her posture says everything. For a heartbeat, Lucas thinks she's mistaken. Maya's breath trembles as she finally meets his eyes. And that's when Lucas realizes this isn't about a scene, or embarrassment, or protocol. This is survival. Her next words are quieter, steadier, deadly certain. "I heard them. All of it. And they're not going to wait much longer." The guests blur. The music fades. And Lucas Robinson, America's golden billionaire, understands for the first time that the person saving him is the one person everyone else overlooks. The janitor, Maya Angelou. And now the story shifts, back to the hours before the ceremony, before the chaos, when everything still looked perfect from the outside. Let's go back to where it all began. But before we begin, if you're ready to hear the whole story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as crazy as this one, and you don't want to miss it. Now let's get into it. Back to the hours before the ceremony, before the chaos, when everything still looked perfect from the outside. The staff at Marlin Mansion moved like clockwork, chefs checking trays, florists misting white hydrangeas, photographers testing their lenses under the DC sunlight. Lucas watched it all from the balcony outside his suite, the Potomac glittering beyond the trees. Everything was immaculate, precise, expensive, the kind of wedding people in magazines envied. And yet his stomach had been uneasy all morning. He blamed nerves, cold feet, the typical pre-wedding spiral. But standing there now, he could see the exact moment it began when his brothers arrived. Tony had offered a hug that felt like a chokehold. Edward's smile never touched his eyes. Jeremy barely said a word, just scanned the grounds like he was looking for exits. Lucas told himself he imagined it. But then, while adjusting his tux in the hallway mirror, he saw something else. Maya moving unusually fast across the corridor, her cleaning cart abandoned near the wall. He'd worked with her for years. She never left tools out of place. "Lucas," her voice was breathless. "Urgent. I need to talk to you. Alone." He followed her behind the service corridor, confused but calm. Maya never broke protocol, never raised her voice, never interrupted anything, let alone a billionaire on his wedding day. She glanced around, making sure the hall was empty. "I heard them," she whispered. "Heard who?" "Your brothers." Her hands trembled as she tried to steady herself. They were talking in the east stairwell, saying today was the day, that the ceremony would be the easiest moment to make it look like an accident. Lucas almost laughed. Almost. "Maya, come on. They might be jerks, but..." "No." She stepped closer, her voice cracking. "This wasn't a joke, Lucas. They said your name. They said you wouldn't see it coming." The air thinned. His pulse stalled, then kicked back violently. He searched her face for exaggeration, but there was none, only fear. Real fear. "Why would you risk your job for me?" he whispered. Her eyes softened, but only barely. "Because I've watched harm get ignored before, and I'll never let it happen again." A breath shuddered out of him. If people understood how often danger hides behind a smile, maybe more of us would pay attention. Maybe fewer people would be alone in moments like this. If you're still here reading, it means you care. Don't walk past stories like this one. Lucas swallowed hard and nodded. The decision settled between them. He would trust Maya, even if it meant risking everything. Lucas found his brothers near the cocktail terrace, where guests were gathering for early photos. The soft hum of DC chatter floated around them. Politicians, entrepreneurs, and influencers sipping champagne under strings of white lights. Tony spotted him first. "Little brother," he called out, lifting his glass. Getting cold feet already? Lucas forced a smile. Just checking in. Big day. Edward adjusted his cufflinks. Big day for you, he corrected sharply. Not for all of us. Jeremy just stared, hands tucked in his pockets, jaw tighter than before. Maya's voice echoed in Lucas's mind. They said your name. They said today was the day, so he decided to test them. You guys sure everything's okay? Lucas asked lightly. You seem tense. Tony scoffed. We're fine. Not everyone has the luxury of blowing millions on a single afternoon. Edward added. Some of us have actual work to worry about. His tone was clipped, almost biting. Jeremy didn't look away from Lucas. You should enjoy the moment, he murmured. While it lasts. That last part wasn't sarcasm. It wasn't a joke. It was a threat wrapped in a whisper. A memory flickered. Years of boardroom fights about inheritance. Their resentment that Lucas took over their father's company while their own ventures tanked. The shouting. The slammed doors. Tony accusing him of stealing a legacy that wasn't meant for him. Another flash. Last Christmas, when Jeremy cornered him in the driveway and said, You always land on your feet. But luck runs out. He didn't think much of it then. Now he did. Nearby, Maya moved quietly between staff, pretending to straighten chairs while keeping her eyes locked on the brothers. She blended in so naturally that most guests barely noticed her. Lucas did. She was positioned like a human barrier, watching their hands, their movements, their proximity to him. Vanessa approached with her bouquet, her smile stiff. Lucas, what's going on? You look weird. Her eyes flicked to Maya. Why is the cleaning staff hovering? He didn't answer. He couldn't. Not yet. Because for the first time in his life, Lucas saw his brothers clearly. Not as family, not as rivals, but as men capable of something far darker than he'd ever allowed himself to believe. The wedding wasn't even underway, and already, everything looked different. Lucas waited until the guests drifted toward the garden entrance before he stepped away from his brothers. He spotted Maya near the catering tent, pretending to rearrange a tray of water glasses. Her eyes flicked up the moment he approached, as if she'd been tracking him the entire time. We need to talk, he said quietly. Maya nodded and followed him behind a row of tall hedges lining the mansion's south lawn. The noise of the crowd softened, replaced by the distant hum of DC traffic and the faint rustling of summer leaves. Lucas turned to face her. I need the truth. All of it. Why did you come to me? Why risk your job, your safety, your life? Maya hesitated, just for a breath, before exhaling slowly. Because I've seen this before. Seen what? Men pretending to love you. Pretending to protect you. Pretending you're safe. Her voice wavered but didn't break. My best friend, Keisha, she trusted someone she shouldn't have. Everyone thought he was charming, responsible. Even I did. But behind closed doors, he controlled her. Threatened her. Hurt her. Lucas's brows pulled together. Maya, I'm so sorry. She tried to get help, Maya continued softly. But people brushed her off. They said she was exaggerating. Being dramatic. Reading too much into things. She swallowed, eyes fixed on the ground. The night she really needed someone to listen, no one did. Not even me. And I lost her. Silence settled between them. Heavy, human, raw. Maya wiped her palms on her uniform. When I heard your brothers talking this morning, I felt that same cold feeling I ignored back then. That instinct that says something is wrong, even when everything looks perfect on the outside. Lucas felt something shift inside him. Not just fear, but clarity. Understanding. I'm not letting history repeat itself, Maya whispered. Not on my watch. Not with you. Lucas studied her, realizing how deeply he had underestimated her. She wasn't just the quiet janitor who worked nights and double shifts. She wasn't just the woman who swept hallways and polished floors while billionaires walked past her without seeing her. She was brave. She was perceptive. She was the only one standing between him and danger. Maya, he said softly. Thank you for trusting me with this, and for fighting for me when you didn't have to. She met his eyes, and for the first time that day, neither of them felt alone. Their bond, fragile and unlikely, had begun to form. The string quartet began playing as guests took their seats, the soft swell of violins floating through the garden of Marlin Mansion. The Potomac shimmered behind the floral arbor, and the Washington Monument stood tall in the distance, silent, steady, unaware of the storm building beneath its shadow. Lucas stepped into the aisle, every muscle tight. He felt Maya, just a few steps behind him, blending in with the staff, pretending to adjust arrangements and straighten chairs. But Lucas knew. She wasn't watching the flowers. She was watching his brothers. Tony stood near the third row, pretending to joke with a guest, but his eyes kept flicking toward Edward. Edward gave a tiny nod. Jeremy adjusted his jacket sleeve like he was checking something underneath it. Signals. Timing. Movement. Lucas's breath thinned. The officiant smiled warmly as Lucas reached the altar. Welcome, everyone, he began, voice booming through the speakers. We're gathered today to celebrate. Maya's head turned sharply. Behind the arbor, a shadow shifted. Vanessa stepped into place across from Lucas, bouquet trembling slightly. She searched his face, trying to understand why the man she was about to marry looked like he'd seen a ghost. Lucas, she whispered through clenched teeth. Why do you keep looking behind you? He didn't answer. He couldn't. Because Maya was there. Eyes scanning, posture tense, every move calculated. She drifted closer to the front, wiping down a table for show, but really placing herself between Lucas and the shifting figures near the back. The officiant continued talking, but no one seemed to hear him. Not Lucas. Not Maya. Not the brothers. Sometimes the people screaming for help don't make a sound, and the ones who try to warn them stand alone. If stories like this remind you to look a little closer, don't turn away. Stay with us. Maya froze. Lucas followed her gaze. Tony took one step forward. Edward adjusted his tie. Jeremy's hand slipped inside his jacket. It was happening. Maya's eyes went wide. Panic, certainty, and action igniting all at once. Lucas, she whispered, barely audible over the music. They're moving. And the world, his perfect, public, photographed world, began to twist into something dangerous. The music hit its soft crescendo, violins lifting, sunlight glowing across the garden, as if the universe itself didn't realize what was about to happen. Maya realized it first. Her breath hitched. Lucas moved. Before he could react, Tony burst from behind the lantern archway, sprinting forward with a force that didn't belong anywhere near a wedding. Chairs scraped. Guests gasped. Someone shouted, "What the hell?" Lucas barely had time to turn. Maya slammed both hands into his chest, shoving him sideways just as Tony lunged where Lucas had been standing seconds earlier. The impact of Tony's missed strike sent him stumbling into a floral arrangement, roses and hydrangeas exploding into the air. "Hey, security," Maya screamed, her voice cracking through the chaos like a siren. All hell broke loose. Edward bolted toward the garden exit, positioning himself like a bouncer guarding the only clear escape path. His expression wasn't angry, it was focused, determined, cold. Jeremy moved next. His hand slipped inside his suit jacket, too fast, too practiced, too intentional. Guests nearby shrieked, pulling their children close. "Jeremy, don't," someone yelled. But Jeremy wasn't listening. His fingers wrapped around something inside the lining of his coat. Metal? Plastic? Maya couldn't see, but she didn't need to. The intent was enough. "Lucas, get down." Maya yanked him behind a row of chairs, knocking over a centerpiece as they ducked. Guests toppled over each other as panic surged down the aisle. Vanessa stood frozen for a moment, face pale, bouquet trembling, before her knees buckled. The bride crumpled onto the grass, fainting into the arms of a stunned bridesmaid. Photographers dropped their cameras, eyes wide. Groomsmen backed away, unsure whether to protect the groom or run for their own lives. Lucas couldn't breathe, not from the fall, not from fear, but from the realization that his brothers weren't bluffing. They had planned this. They were executing it. Maya grabbed his wrist. "We have to move. Now." They crawled behind a row of tall ferns, slipping between decorative columns and scattering petals under their feet. Tony recovered quickly, scanning the crowd with wild eyes, searching for where Lucas had landed. "There," Jeremy shouted, pointing. Maya tightened her grip on Lucas's hand. "Don't look back," she hissed. "Just trust me." Together, they sprinted through the chaos, dodging guests, weaving through overturned chairs, as the first attempt on Lucas Robinson's life exploded into full view of Washington, D.C. They barely escaped, but the danger was far from over. Maya didn't stop running until she pulled Lucas behind a tall marble column near the mansion's east terrace. The chaos behind them was deafening. Shouts, chairs crashing, guests stampeding in heels and tucks shoes across the lawn. Lucas pressed a hand to his chest, gasping. "Maya, what the hell was that?" She didn't waste a second. She pulled out her phone. "I didn't just hear them, Lucas. I recorded what I could." His eyes widened as she swiped through her gallery. Photos of Tony's scribbled notes left on a catering table, screenshots of overheard emails she'd spotted on an open laptop, timestamps, fragments of conversation recorded through a cracked door. Lucas grabbed her wrist gently. "Maya, you've been keeping this." "I didn't know how much time we had," she whispered. "And I wasn't sure if you'd believe me unless you saw it for yourself." From across the lawn, security finally took control. 2 guards tackled Tony near the reflecting pool. Another group cornered Edward by the catering tents as he yelled that it was all misunderstood. Jeremy was dragged away from the arbor, still insisting he never touched anything. Their voices echoed across the garden. "Let me go. He deserves this." "You don't understand." It's our company. Guests stared in horror, clutching their purses and pearls, gossip spreading like wildfire. Someone whispered, "Is this staged?" Another said, "No, this is real." I think the groom was the target. Reporters who had been invited to cover the high-profile wedding snapped photos as security wrestled the brothers to the ground. Smartphone shot videos. The story was already leaking. Vanessa stumbled toward Lucas, mascara running. "Your brothers?" "Lucas," they said it was about the Robinson Empire. Her voice cracked. "Tell me they're lying. Tell me they didn't try to," she choked mid-sentence, collapsing into a bridesmaid's arms. Lucas looked at Maya. I don't understand. Why today? Why like this?" Maya's jaw tightened. "Because desperation makes people dangerous. And your brothers were drowning." As if on cue, two mansion employees, the chef and a groundskeeper, approached security, nervously raising their hands. "I heard them arguing last week," the chef said. "They paid me to look the other way," the groundskeeper added. More staff members stepped forward. More truths spilled into the open. The investigation was no longer just beginning. It was unraveling everything. And Lucas, for the first time, saw the scope of the betrayal surrounding him. The wail of sirens sliced through the chaos, growing louder as a fleet of DC police cruisers tore up the driveway of Marlin Mansion. Guests parted like a panicked tide, clearing a path as uniformed officers rushed toward the garden where the Robinson brothers were still being restrained by security. Lucas stood beside Maya, breath unsteady, suit jacket torn from being dragged across the lawn. He watched as the officers swarmed his brothers, three men who shared his blood but none of his loyalty. Detective Harris, a tall black woman with a stern but steady gaze, approached them. "Mr. Robinson, we've been briefed by your security team." She held up a folder. "We've reviewed the evidence your staff turned in." Lucas swallowed. "And?" She flipped the folder open. "Your brothers are in serious financial trouble. Millions in debt." She turned a page. "We also found a series of private messages between them, violent messages, threats, plans, all centered around you." Maya stood just behind Lucas, listening, hands clasped tightly at her waist. Detective Harris continued. "They discussed staging a fatal mishap during the ceremony. Something that could be blamed on equipment failure or a medical issue." She lowered her voice. "It wasn't an impulsive act. This was planned. Weeks in the making." Lucas felt the blood drain from his face. Nearby, Tony thrashed against the officers. "He stole our inheritance. He stole everything." Edward screamed. "We deserved the company." Jeremy didn't speak, just glared at Lucas with a hatred that chilled him to the bone. The officers forced them into separate patrol cars, the doors slamming shut with a finality that echoed across the lawn. Maya stepped closer, almost instinctively, like she was bracing for the emotional blow Lucas hadn't processed yet. Detective Harris softened her tone. "We'll need full statements from both of you." Lucas nodded. "She stays with me," he said immediately, glancing at Maya. "She's the reason I'm alive." Maya looked down, humbled and shaken. They sat together at a small table near the terrace, answering questions as the wedding staff dismantled the ceremony around them. The flowers were collected, the chairs folded. The aisle rolled up like the day had never been planned at all. Vanessa didn't return. The wedding planner quietly confirmed the ceremony was officially canceled. But Lucas didn't feel heartbreak. He felt something closer to clarity. Relief. Freedom. Because as the police cars pulled away and the last petals blew across the grass, it became unmistakably clear. Maya hadn't just warned him. She had saved his life. 3 weeks after the ruined wedding, the city had finally stopped talking about it. The headlines faded, the gossip blogs moved on, and the Robinson brothers remained behind bars awaiting trial. But for Lucas, the noise had not quieted. It had simply shifted into something else, something clearer. He stood outside a brick apartment building in southeast DC, holding a small gift bag and wondering if Maya would even open the door. The neighborhood was quiet. Kids playing basketball down the block, the smell of someone grilling chicken drifting through the air. Normal. Human. Peaceful in a way Lucas had never really known. He knocked. A few seconds later, Maya opened the door, wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans, her hair pulled back, eyes widening in surprise. "Lucas? What are you doing here?" He offered a shy smile. "I owed you a visit. And a conversation." She stepped aside, letting him in. Her apartment was small but warm. Family photos, thrifted furniture, a cozy throw blanket on the couch. The kind of place built with love, not money. Lucas set the gift bag on the coffee table. "I brought something for you. And I want to talk about your future." She blinked. "My future?" He nodded. "I want you on my team. Full-time. Not cleaning floors. Not doing the tasks nobody sees. I want you in a real position. Safety oversight. Staff liaison. Whatever title you want. Something that reflects who you are. Someone who sees danger before anyone else does. Someone who acts when others freeze. Maya's eyes glistened. Lucas, you don't owe me anything. I'm not offering out of guilt, he said softly. I'm offering because you saved my life. And because people like you deserve rooms you're not normally invited into. She looked down, overwhelmed. For the first time in a long time, she felt seen, valued not for what she cleaned, but for who she was. Lucas sat back, exhaling. You know, I grew up believing family was blood. That loyalty came automatically. Turns out, that's not true at all. Maya gave a small, knowing smile. Sometimes the people meant to love you are the ones who hurt you most. He nodded. And sometimes the person you least expect becomes the one you trust with everything. If you've ever had someone stand up for you when they didn't have to, you know why stories like this matter. And if you've never had someone like that, maybe staying connected to stories like these is the first step toward finding one. Maya took a deep breath. So, this job offer. You're serious? Lucas smiled. As serious as the day you saved me. And in that small apartment in Southeast DC, something unspoken settled between them. Not duty, not fear, not survival, but the beginning of a chosen family. What will you rate this story from? And what part of the world are you watching from? Comment your country below. Let's build a global community rooted in kindness and second chances. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe and share it with your friends. Your support brings us closer to our 1K subscriber milestone and inspires us to keep creating more emotional stories of resilience, healing, and Black excellence. Thank you for being part of our journey. Your presence matters more than you know.